There we are. We are live with Mad PD, a full day, a full day of learning from wherever you are and however you want to learn. Welcome. I'm Helen DeWard. I teach with the Faculty of Education in with Lakehead in Aurelia, and I'm here just to share some information about personal learning networks, professional learning networks, and finding affinity spaces where you can connect to friends and fans. Thank you, Steve, for joining in. Do you want to just introduce yourself, take a moment and talk about our connections?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I'm Stephen Secord. I also teach at the Faculty of Education at Lakehead University. And I've been working with Helen for the last few years in digital learning spaces and digital technology and all things digital and not. So we've been having a lot of fun, and we're going to continue having fun in the next little while to come. And I'm really looking forward to this session.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, hi,
And
Lynn.
hi, Lynn. I'm glad you could join us. Do you have audio? And maybe you can just do a quick intro just to say hi to anyone who may be watching.
No problem. First off, can you hear me okay, Helen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Hi, my name's Lynn Carton, and I'm sort of an independent educator. I work for a number of different organizations, such as McMaster University, Fleming College, and Healthcare Canada. And I do both instructional design and teach face-to-face and distance, and have just sort of gotten involved with personal learning networks and expanding my network of people, especially through Ontario Extend, and have really been enjoying that.
We've been enjoying some daily tweets together. It's been
Exactly.
fun. It's fun to build momentum and share just wild and wacky things that way. So thanks for joining today. I'm just going to very quickly do a screen share and nope, do the entire screen over here and hopefully present to everyone. Are you seeing my friends, finding friends and fans in affinity spaces? Yes. Perfect. All right. So there is a short link, so you can access the slides after this session. No problems there. Willing to share anything that I've learned. So let's move to the next slide. Affinity spaces are places that are self-directed, self-selected, multi-layered. They're invitational spaces. This notion comes from the gaming community, and they co-create spaces where they can play and game together, and participants are recognized for what they know and what they can do rather than any titles or hierarchy. The affinity spaces for professional learning networks, personal learning networks, really are ones that you can build yourself. You don't have to travel alone into anything that you want to do in digital spaces. So that's a kind of a grassroots notion. So we talk about what a PLN is, and to differentiate it from a PLE that focuses on the content or the processes, the tools, devices, services, places where you do stuff versus the places where you connect and build relationships, establish your roles, and build community. Those are the people, the groups, and the gatherings that we spend time in. So Steve or Lynn, do you have any spaces that you gather and group people that you know? If you want to jump in and add anything from this graphic.
I actually am one of those people who am involved in a gaming community, and so I really relate to that part of it.
And are you using a specific tool when you're in that gaming community that is different from others that may be professional tools?
We use a tool called Discord
Yes.
for
Thank you for
chatting
sharing.
that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's one that I wasn't introduced to because I'm not a gamer, and came across through another network, another kind of community, and one of the members was a gamer and came out with this Discord. So I again dipped into Discord and discovered what was going on in there.
Mhm.
Steve?
Yeah, well, a lot of different things I'm interested in, but I find obviously Twitter being the one that probably everyone is comfortable with and who we're talking to right now. But I also find the Google and circles, but Google Plus, I guess is what they're calling it now, tends to have some very dedicated um, areas for very specific content. And I'm finding I don't use it a lot, but when I'm looking for something specific, I find it's pretty good actually. I don't want it for general information, but I do like it for those specific, almost like Google Groups in a way, is sort of a takeoff from that. So.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you and I have played a little bit with the tools, the Slack tool,
Yeah,
to
Slack.
create space for gatherings for our students.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting tool that connects to PLN building. Ultimately, the big question then is, why are we doing this? And for me, it's a way to build connected learning spaces for my students, and to kind of at the base of it all, the notion of digital citizenship and building their agency, their interactions with others, and building their digital persona in very concrete and critical ways. So ultimately, for me, that's why PLN, building affinity spaces, it's okay for me to have them, but if my students don't have them, they're leaving without the connections that I think they need as they go into the profession. And knowing that building PLNs is very very progressive, very iterative. You start by exploring, and you end by being a fully engaged, responsive participant in the network. And exploring can be everything from just watching how people engage. Particularly in Discord space, I knew nothing about how to engage or respond or provide any feedback. So I just explored and searched and followed and kind of built my skills within that space. So as we were talking a little bit about Ontario Extend does just this. They build that place for exploration, and ultimately then people engage in the process to the point of fully responding if they choose to do so. Skip through. So ultimately it is, how do you do it? Social media obviously is a big piece of it, and you can pick and choose where you want to engage. Twitter is probably one of the best ones to build capacity for building fans and friends, ones that you can connect with for professional purposes with a specific passion in mind. It could be, find the group that is into coding, find the group that is into sketchnoting, and you can build those connections in small steps, incrementally, and ultimately looking critically at which friends and fans to follow really is a negotiation into the space of how you want to do it, whether it's within a community or if it's individual. This graphic kind of describes how you can manage and negotiate to either dial it up or down depending on your own decisions and your own factors. So for example, the Discord piece I was talking about, my efficacy and my skills and fluencies in Discord were lacking. So my decision to be physically engaged was, I dialed way back and kept myself closed and more private, more static than I would have in, say, Twitter, where I'm open and public and it's, a self-directed space. And who who do you connect to? I like to start local. I like to start with a physical group, and from there build a local, Ontario-based group. I like the Ontario Extend because it helps me connect to higher ed spaces in Ontario. But from there, I tend to move out and really look for circles of influence. I may be an open ranger in Ontario, but I like to extend that into other open spaces. And I usually look for circles that influence my thinking. And so it starts with each one. So each individual becomes a potential fan or friend. In this case, Sarah Lalonde has now become a friend because of a connection where I reached out to her to have her participate in an activity with my students. Each one can then reach one, and you can call groups together. And in my recent experience with the OE Global Conference in Delft, there were groups that gathered through social media and physically found each other in the huge conference space by doing the reach reach one. And I love places like this where follow the FF, the Follow Friday grouping. You can share people, and then I can look at this list, for example, that Derek Rodenizer shared, and look at each of them and say, can I find a friend or fan in this grouping, and will I follow them? And then to respond out, to take that risk and jump into something. The On-Ed Mentors, for example, or the Ontario Education Chat that happens each month are ways to respond in small ways to build your professional learning network. But ultimately, it's your job to do the explorations. So I just thought I'd ask, where do either of you, or have either of you, explored or built connections?
I definitely have been building connections with the Ontario Extend in the last, what's it been now, I guess 2 months, meeting a lot of great people and reconnecting with a lot of people who I haven't talked to in a long time. Other than that, it's a lot of Twitter and a lot of what you just described of just sort of following, find the FF hashtag and educators who are sharing other educators, and sort of just, it's like a tentacle, right? Like it just keeps working out and out and out until you just find more people.
And Lynn?
I'm sort of in the same boat as Stephen. I have to admit, before I started off in the Ontario Extend East cohort a little while ago, I had used Twitter to tweet things maybe a dozen times. And now I'm really comfortable with it, and my reach keeps growing. So I started with the Extend family, and as I find things that are of interest or that other people have retweeted, it's like those ripples go out and you continue to build.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And when I started in Twitter, I found it really confusing because in some cases there were so many people to connect. So I really creatively started using lists in Twitter to build almost like circles. So I have a list for Ontario Extend, and I have a list for my students so that I can keep connected to those students who are on Twitter. And I have a list for Lakehead University so I can tweet strategically out and build that connection to people. And even try and track hashtags, because sometimes there are really unique hashtags that the conversations evolve around these hashtags. So I tend to keep and store and try and remember some of the hashtags that are say worth remembering. Okay. So we explore. For me, I like to build things around conversations. I like to, let me go back. To build around conversations, I like to link from events. For example, the OE Global that I just attended. There's a CNIE coming up in mid-May. So those are the kinds of things. And then to find ways to collaborate, to connect. I pushed myself into doing a MOOC in the January-February timeframe that was set in the European context about online safety. And it connected me to some new friends and fans in European countries that are really kind of working hard on online safety for their students. My favorite place is virtually connecting. I do a fair amount of virtually connecting. Let me go back again. Connected learning. There's a CL MOOC that goes year round, but really focuses in the summer months for about 4 weeks, where we actively join together. The last probably, I think, 2 or 3 summers, where it's more like make and take time. So it's like playtime, sandbox time, and there are just prompts that you can do to engage with others. A Kid's Guide to Canada, Ontario Extend, Voice Ed Radio has become a nice place to build conversations and links. And of course, ISTE as a professional learning network, they have really focused networks around groups and purpose and passion. So those are the spaces that I like to find. I don't hesitate to block or stop following people if I don't find that I'm getting any connection or any conversation when I need it. But a great place to start, obviously, is with something like this, with the MAD PD event. All the Twitter handles are there. And then from there, you can reach out, and if they're on Instagram or Facebook, you can build the connections from there. So this is a great place to start for an event like today. So I want to thank Peter and Derek for tethering us together and building the connections, building this global affinity space that we've got happening today. So on that note, I will stop sharing. Any final thoughts from you, Lynn or Steve, about building your affinity space? What will you do one thing after today?
For me, one of the things I want to do is encourage new people who are just starting out into it. I've seen with the Extend West cohort that's going to start, one person who posted saying they were kind of shy about it. And that was me a little while ago. And I think we really have to encourage people. So this kind of, hangout where we talked about this and you encourage other people is just the perfect thing to get people started.
And sometimes it just takes one person to reach out and say, I was there. I know what it feels like. Yeah, so that's good. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, I think, really encouraging people is the big part of all this. I'm picturing this from professional point of view, and I'm looking at next year teaching in the Faculty of Education is really trying to push these connections a little more. Done it a little bit, but always in the digital type classes. And I'm thinking of the other classes I teach, like the science, and that there's no reason why really something like this can't be incorporated as well, and have them starting to not just connect with each other, but starting to branch out to those other educators out there who are willing to share and want to share, which is awesome.
Yeah, and ultimately finding those friends, critical friends that they can ask a question to when they hit a roadblock. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So thank you very much for sharing, and we'll see you in the affinity spaces. Friends and fans united.
Thanks, Helen.
Bye.
Thanks, Helen. Bye.